Every single thing in this room except you was in a shipping container. Well spotted. So, global trade will double between now and 2050. In the next 25 years, we're going to see the largest expansion known to mankind in trade. That's humongous. To most of you, that might seem like a small number or insignificant. But let me put you in a time machine. If we went back to 1950, and we summed up all the cargo moved between 1950 to 1975, over 25 years, in 2050, 100 years later, we need to do that in 365 days. That's huge. So, with huge opportunity comes challenges. Here are some of the challenges we face in the Caribbean. Of course, high transport and logistics costs. We heard about that. Moving cargo from St. Vincent to Barbados up to Dominica, very slow, very expensive. Agreed? Bringing cargo in, we heard, again, very expensive. And that is hitting everyone's pocket. This is part of the cost of living crisis. We also have small and fragmented markets with huge potential to scale. But we lack connectivity, both in information, in markets, and in technology. If you don't know where something is, you can't buy it. So we need to have that level of technology integration. Administrative burden is slow in the region, of course, and this is a challenge that faces all of us. Why? It slows down, causes friction, what we call in trade, causes delays. The more delays, the higher the cost. And who pays for it? You. So again, affecting cost of living. Vulnerabilities, economic shocks and climate shocks. Yes, we heard about this before. But what's most painful in the region is based on our small island economies, we feel the pain much worse than the larger nations. So we need to have resilience to protect ourselves. And finally, achieving United Nations sustainability goals. This is fundamentally important. Why? We here in the Caribbean are in the front line of this global crisis from climate. So, let's look at some of our micro SME exporters. Auntie Jo, she sells cocoa. 500 sticks in the market. Thing nice. But she wants to expand. She heard that if she sells to other islands like Barbados, she can sell 5,000 sticks. Richard here sells lobsters, local restaurants and hotels. But he wants to go beyond lobsters. And he heard China is a huge market. However, there's high risk because it's a perishable, and he has never exported. Rose, on the other hand, she just came back from the UK, and she found a niche in the market, a gap that's unfilled for nice exotic spice rums. She ships 2 pallets a week, but she knows if she pushes into Europe, she can have 20 pallets a week. All of these persons have the one same single vision. They want to grow beyond what they're doing. They want 10x growth. And what do they need? A big push. Let me hear it. What do they need? A big push. So let's take a look at what Nexar does and how we're going to help these SMEs. I will now take you through a demo. And this is the beautiful part of my tech. It's called plug and play. Any of these SMEs, all they need is a mobile phone in one hand and a little black box smart device in the other hand. The size of a wallet. Well, a pretty fat wallet loaded with cash or cards. Scan, QR code, plug and play, and now voila. The platform arrives on their mobile phone. 100% visibility, end to end. They have a cargo twin and a carbon twin in real time. So let's assume this is Rose, and she's moving her shipment, as you can see here, from Cashews up to Southampton. She's trying to sell more of her rum. By just clicking on that, she can see her transit of the ship, Geese line, of course, leaving Cashews all the way up to the UK. She can go to her main dashboard and see the details of what's in the container, what's happening in real time, in terms of the position and in terms of any alerts. The bolt or seal on the container, the device that is attached on her cargo. If there's any alerts, it's going to pop up in the center here. Also, she has a visibility in terms of her emissions on the right-hand side. For emergency alerts, maybe temperature, security, she will get notification on her phone and on her email, also through the platform. She now knows exactly what's happening. She doesn't need to call anyone, email anyone, fax anyone. She has the power of technology in her hand. With regard to inspection, no worries for Rose. When the container arrives, she sends a link from her mobile phone. It goes to the receiver's mobile phone at the warehouse, maybe a 3PL agent or a supplier, logistics company, and they will take images of the container, and then when it's loaded, what we'll see here, they'll take images of the cargo. Now, this may seem insignificant to the human eye, but fundamentally here, this is changing logistics. Why? On the document, it will say set to contain, received in good order. We can actually see what's inside the container. And that's critical. Why? At customs now, through the single window, which Darwin will speak about, we can now pre-process cargo before it arrives. And Rose has given that power and information transfer using this platform. Everything is geolocated, time-stamped, and verified. So you have continuous monitoring, reporting, and verification of your cargo as it goes through the entire supply chain. And worst case scenario, if it all goes south, as we say, it arrives in Southampton as a shipper, and it's damaged, la voila. The receiver now can take photos, send that back to Joe, but most importantly, this opens the door to what we call parametric insurance. And we're speaking to insurance companies to integrate insurance into the platform. So what would take 3 months to 6 months to process will happen now in 3 weeks, because the data is there, verified by an independent person, the cargo arrives damaged. Next, we have a document vault, as you can see here, where all the documents can be held in one place. You're not chasing emails, checking around where's your documents, customs, immigration. Everyone now can have access to this document vault. It's very easy. Why? Joe didn't go to university like me. Richard didn't go to university like me. But they're really good entrepreneurs. And we're trying to make things very simple for them. Everything is in one place. Carbon emissions. It's not a big thing yet here in the UK, but in Europe, Darwin touched on that, we have what's called emission trading scheme. So ships have to pay for carbon offsets. This will soon trickle down into the micro companies through what we call Scope 3 emissions reporting. So this platform future-proofs our entrepreneurs and business persons. If not, without this carbon emissions reporting, they will be locked out of Europe and emerging markets. And finally, in terms of key features, here, as you can see, what's cool about these devices is that they're modern. They can be remotely operated. Like it or not. The old devices, you need to set it up. Once you put it in the container, that's it. You can do nothing. Now, you can check the temperature. You can change your idle time. So, for example, for lobsters, Richard will need to be 2 to 3 degrees. You can set that up, even though the device is not in his hand. When it's arriving, you can change your arrival time to 1,000 meters away. So he gets an alert, like your Uber alert. Your taxi is 5 minutes away. The warehouse is going to have advance notice. Our light alert, this is the most awesome for our customers in LATAM. Why? Cargo security is a big problem. Once that light alert goes open, or alerts, we know the container is open. That container is breached for security reason. It has been compromised. And 100% should be checked by the customs. Something went wrong in the supply chain. And that protects Rose now. Why? It wasn't me. And we can timestamp, geolocate when that happened. All with this tiny little device. And finally, when the shipment is set up by Rose, she can now share it with the importer. And by doing that, she just does this, and what would happen, most of these toggles here would disappear because the receiver now will have a different view. They would have what's called a limited view. So they would only see the high-level information, as we saw earlier, high-level what's happening with the container, the carbon emissions reporting, because they may need this, of course, for their import, and other information around the device. Quickly, just to show you, we have devices, as I said, in the LATAM region. Most of our devices at the moment are in Panama. So you have quite a lot of devices in Panama. This is real time, so we can zoom in and we can see what's happening in the port of Colón in Panama. Our customers are transshipping their cargo via this main port, of course, to the hinterland and other countries. In summary, we are trying to empower these SMEs with technology in the palm of their hand. Imagine a world 25 years ago, before we had smartphones. How was that world? Much different. Imagine traders are operating without this smart technology. It's equivalent to you 25 years ago without your smartphone. They're shipping in the blind, and they need help. In summary, coming to the end, this tech stack can be used for other challenges we face here in the Caribbean. Fishing vessels, same thing, IoT device on the fishing vessel, you can track the fishing vessel. The fisherman can take photos of his catch and sell it before it arrives. Minivans. I'm from St. Vincent. I remember as a little boy, I had to walk up the road in the hot sun or the rain, stand on the corner and hope that 𝐾𝐧𝐬𝐿 or Buster or Confidence, one of the minivans, picked me up to take me to school. Now, school children with smart devices can see the van is on the way. Just like Uber in their hand. It's IoT technology. Same tech, different vertical. And then the final one, which affects all of us again, disasters. In times of disasters, brings out the best and the worst of people, processes, and systems. Everything becomes time sensitive. Everything is urgent. And technology helps you get that aid to the right people at the right time. All again in the palm of your hand. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. My mic is on for real. You heard a little while ago and something happened and you were hearing me illegally. Now it's the real deal. You can listen to me now. Imagine this. There's a cruise ship on the pier, or 2, 3. In St. Kitts, there could be 4. In Antigua, there could be 5. Ships arrive at 6 o'clock. And what follows the ships are all those lovely taxi guys who are sitting waiting outside, hoping that someone would come out to join their taxis. The ladies are getting ready in the restaurants to feed the people, but something's happening. The ship's not cleared. Keep that in mind. The IMO had a problem. On that same ship, there is a stevedore. I'm sorry, there's a seafarer. The seafarer is not well. He needs to get off board, and the hospital send the ambulance down, but he can't get off. Ship's not cleared. So what seems to be just an issue of time is now one of an economic problem, because those taxi guys aren't making any money, and someone is on board with a life and death situation, and the IMO said enough is enough. We don't want people clearing ships. I'm going to show you what we had to do, what we have in place, and I'll take a very few minutes to do so, because you've probably seen a few bits and pieces of it. So I'll skip a few slides. Some of these are not so important, and I'll stay here. So the ships with the sick guys on board, and it's not cleared because in most of the countries of the world, not just the Caribbean, but in all space, we physically have to walk to the ship, get on board, sit with the captain, sign a few documents, and sometimes the captain says, do you want a cup of coffee? Do you want some tea? Do you want to have a chat? But there's another cruise ship waiting, and another one. In Antigua, we could have 5 cruise ships waiting. So imagine you're on board one where you're taking 45 minutes, do the maths. Before it's all done, you've wasted 2 hours and a half. And then that boarding party has to leave the cruise ships to go to deal with the Rams containers at the cargo terminal. So now 3 hours wasted here, 40 minutes to drive if they don't stop to get a drink, and they get to the new port, and they take their very good time to start giving you your food. Well, we don't measure a lot of things, but if you start measuring the hidden cost, you begin to see things within our port ecosystem where cost, you're already complaining about the bill of lading, and I can tell you, I know what they are. In St. Kitts, 40-foot container could be as high as $14,000 US. That's so difficult to believe, but that's true. But then we are adding more cost on top of that. As a matter of fact, as a port director, which I am more concerned about the ship cost to the warehouse cost, because that's what we control. We don't control the bill of lading. We are so consumed with the bill of lading number, we're forgetting that we are adding maybe equal amounts or close to that amount to the bill of lading. This system erases that. It also erases the risk of having that guy wait. Now, quickly, fragmentation is what we have in our region. And I'm going to show you how we solve that, or we are in the process of solving it. I would like the governor to be here because I'm going to ask him for help to fix this problem as well. So if you can find the governor, ask him to get here quickly. I want to tell him. There's a dynamic happening in the shipping industry. Ships are learning that if they stand alone, they fail. I'll give you the most incredible example of something that just happened. 𝐀𝐧𝐬𝐿 Lines is an Israeli line owned by the Israeli government. About a month and a half ago, Hapag-Lloyd, a German line, just bought 𝐀𝐧𝐬𝐿 Line with the permission of the Israeli government. Now, you talk about two things that should probably never happen, knowing the history there, but survival is real. They needed to merge because the other carrier above Hapag-Lloyd was about to buy them out, so they made a move to try to save themselves. The industry is realizing that if you stand alone, you're going to fail. I'm making this point so we understand. Tiny islands are not really islands. They are vulnerable entities that if they don't join themselves together, we are never going to give the next group who occupy these islands the type of future they deserve. That bold push, I'm going to push you to consider something really wild. Now, this further exemplifies the issue. If ships are merging, then the ships decide, well, we bought a few lines, maybe we should buy a few ports. And last year, MSC bought 45 of almost 50 ports themselves. Maersk is buying, everyone is buying. Why? Because vulnerabilities in the industry are real. And they're trying to ensure they strengthen themselves by building scale, eliminating risk. We're still standing alone. That can't work, people. So the IMO mandates, there are two of them, was one, get a maritime single window, which it's a mandate, and two, you have to do the net zero stuff that Leif just spoke about. And we're going to engage Leif at all the ports in PMAC and in the OECS as well. I like this guy. But here's the deal. When the maritime single window came out, there was no example in the world. 2 countries had it. And the IMO asked Norway to help someone. We put up our hand. We came to Antigua. Our prime minister said a few words to all the actors. Now, I'll tell you something why that was necessary. At ports, customs, port, and all the players, we don't get along. Do you know that? Try to get the port and customs to work together. Minister, that's really hard. It just clashes. And so Prime Minister Gaston Brown has a way of getting people to work together in a colorful way. So he says, you're going to do it, otherwise can't say what he said. So we did it. In a small island, 2 years later, with the help of Norway, we were at the IMO, and for the first time in the world, a maritime single window was built with OECS power, OECS mines, little islands doing big things. One of the most proudest moments of my life was watching these 2 young Antiguan men demonstrate to the world that we could make something dynamic. Maritime single window was born. We left London and they came home. And they weren't done. They decided, let's push more stuff into that stuff. So we brought customs into it with our 𝐾𝐬𝐢𝐥𝐻, that's now in the single window. All the file forms for clearing a ship, the cargo, the declaration of health, everything built into that whole platform. So all the related documents for a ship is now sitting in the single window, and we can easily say that that is something we are very, very proud of. Now, when Antigua did it, we are islands. That's always difficult. If you do it, it's your thing. We decided we're not going to do that. So we've gone from Antigua, we went to Grenada, we trained Grenada. Let me tell you why I'm also proud about this. We didn't bring in a consultant. We had help from the EU. We had some help from other agencies. CAF was also a factor in supporting some of this as well. But we went ourselves, my guys, and we paid for them to travel. We sent them to Grenada, no consulting fees, just sharing, which is something that we don't do very well. We gave it to Grenada. We did it in St. Vincent. We did it in St. Lucia. We did it here in St. Kitts, and I came for this trip in St. Kitts. St. Kitts has a little special part for me. I spent some years here. And so I came here with the guys. We did Montserrat. We were supposed to do Anguilla, Sherman. At the end of the day, we have our people trained to build this thing, and we're going to build it out. Now, once we have the single window, here's what happens. 6 o'clock, 5 cruise ships. They were cleared 12 hours ago. So at 6 a.m., Basse-Terre comes alive. You don't have to wait for the ship to be cleared at 9 or 8. Those taxi guys are on the tour at 6 a.m. You get 3 additional hours for every ship that is berthed there. Ram's container doesn't have to wait until 9:30 when the ship is cleared to do. It's already cleared. It's pre-cleared. It's cleared at 24 hours because everything is digital. No more walking onto the ship. No more paper. No more interface with the captain. You can do that afterwards. But you are not going to slow up the ship. So we have built this system. It's there ready, and now the whole world wants it. But before we give it to the world, we want to give it to our people. So we want to add another dimension to this, which is where I think we want to get a little bit more creative. We don't want this maritime single window to just be a digital system. We want it to be a truly public infrastructure that can bring change in our port community system in the region. What do I mean by that? If we are all in a single window, why does the ship need to clear in St. Lucia if it left St. Vincent? You can see it. It's already cleared. DG, it's in the OECS. We did that for World Cup cricket. Let's not have ships go through this repetitive thing of, oh, because you're here, you have to do it again. Let's close that box. You enter the economic union, you're good. Now, we're not saying that the cargo is cleared. We're saying the ship is cleared. Customs still has to clear the goods in there. But for God's sake, the ship is the same ship. The captain is the same captain. Everything is the same on the ship. But we like repetitive things. And so another boarding party in St. Vincent goes on board. No more. It's all done. So we're saying let's build that across the region. So that's one thing we can do. Second thing we can do is we can say let's integrate the same customs system in there so your goods can also be pre-cleared. Wow. So as soon as the ship docks at 9 and the reefer comes off the ship, it can go straight to Hosford's or TDC or whoever else needs their cargo. No more waiting. Shopping time is a big deal. When ships wait, it costs money. We want to get rid of that as well. So all of that is happening in this system. So now we have a system where if the ship is cleared in St. Vincent, going to St. Lucia can see it coming to it. Full visibility, full accountability. Seems like we're joining the region together. So now I'm asking, DG, if we can build this system and we can merge the port digitally, what about trying to merge it operationally? Same ship. We're taking cargo from it, put it on the ground. It's not rocket science. Why have two sets of rules governing that? Why have two sets of costs? St. Lucia is 1,200, Antigua is 1,400, Grenada is 1,900. It's our people. It's almost as if we're not paying attention. We can standardize that. We don't have to have it go to where, remember, you have a 14,000 bill of lading cost. We are adding to it down the road, and I'm saying we can help ourselves. So we are saying integrate the technology and the digitalization, and as we do that, let's begin to build a system where we can have a single space. Now, there was a question earlier about free movement of goods. And I can get really radical here. Because if we're saying free movement of goods and it's cleared in one space, let's move it. But we'll get to that a little later on. But for now, what I'm saying, if the ship is what we need to clear and it's cleared in the OECS, like we did during Cricket World Cup, let the ship flow through. And if you did that for cruise ships, by the way, they'd be happy to come to the OECS a lot more, because that means the ship can sail around our islands and never be bothered again. They'd be very happy for that. Who likes interruptions and challenges? No one does, and we give the ship quite a bit of that. Now, in my very simple explanation, I'd like to just sum this up quite simply and easily. Industry is consolidating. So we're learning from them. Industry is ships. In the Caribbean, we've had massive consolidation. We've had some who have been bankrupt and gone. We've gone from 1992, 1994, where we had 25 ships in our region, to where we have Tropical Shipping, CMA CGM, King Ocean, and Seaboard Marine doesn't go to every island. Folks, we have 3 ships that calls in our markets every week. If a sector is showing one sign, which is subtraction, the governor spoke of risk. That is a risk we need to address, because the DG said no one's coming. We are not seeing any new entrants in this sector. Therefore, it has to be created. One of the creation that we need to come up with are better ports, more efficient ports, more cost-effective ports, so that it can begin to attract new business. And guess what I'd like to do? I don't want to attract foreign new businesses. I want to attract regional and primarily OECS-bound ships. Ships that are owned by TDC, ships that are owned by Carib Seas and Antigua, merging together, coming to create a company that can carry our cargo in the OECS. But to do that, you need a unifying factor. What is that? That has to be a unified OECS Port Authority. ECPA, one authority integrating our ports into one space, challenging the leaders to say, if you don't integrate, we cannot survive. We are not good enough because we're too small to create the scale that can attract people. So we're saying if Nevis is going to get a ship the size of what Tropical is perpetually, that isn't a risk that we shouldn't take, because there are some ports that are not getting as many ships. So that means we need to start having a bold conversation that pushes us to say we can transform our ports. We are doing so, but that's because the IMO says so. Well, we need to do so now because we want to change that. And if we were to integrate the ports, I'll give you one more radical idea. We put in DG what we call a cabotage. And that cabotage says, put the cargo one place. And if you put 1,000 boxes in one port in the OECS, I guarantee you a bank will fund 2 ships for OECS owners who will carry it to the ports that we now own, and we can mitigate and manage the expense, and we create a future that our people might have a better chance. Folks, I've been in this business a long time. There are no ships that like us. They like our money, but they are not interested in us. And that's true. The geopolitical environment is telling you, you have to love yourself. And if you are going to do that, let's be bold. Let's challenge the status quo and say, we want to take what the IMO is building, integrate that across the port, but we want to go further. The reason I'm saying go further is the IMO didn't tell us to put the file form and customs and the gate management and the yard management in the single window. We did it. So I'm saying, let's do the same. Let's take this, bridge the gap, create the visibility, and let's say to our leaders, give us a chance. We can put the new port headquarters next to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, because as a pillar of regional strength, it is the only reason why the OECS actually exists in this environment. But we need to ensure that there is a structure that can give us a chance. If you rely on the others, it ain't coming. And I'm getting old, and I'd like to leave my 13-year-old daughter in Dominica with a different future. One that gives her a chance to be an owner in a ship that we can call OECS lines. Let's try. Let's give it a shot. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this was quite an interesting segment. So I just want to do a quick temperature check before I go on to our panelists. By show of hands, real quickly, I want to know how many of you have, in the last 12 months, ever experienced maybe something with regards to port or trade that didn't go well? Okay, there you go. So after our discussion, when we have Q&A, I want to hear one of the stories. So Darwin, I will start with you. So you did talk about, I guess you're the one that has the most visibility across 75 ports over 23 countries. So give us an honest status of Caribbean port and maritime infrastructure, the physical condition, digital readiness, energy security and decarbonization readiness, and let us know what was built, what is missing, and what is most exposed. I mean, you did mention some of it, but...
Wow.
Yeah.
So many questions. What I would say is, we are in a very interesting country, Port of St. Kitts. Let's use St. Kitts. I worked down on the Deepwater Harbor for quite some time, and I was here when John Matalon and his team built Port Zante, quite an interesting facility that has done you very well. We've seen investments in cruise terminals. and we have not seen any or much in the cargo side. Now, obviously, the cruise terminals are newer businesses, and generally speaking, because the human-to-human interface is important, there's been a strong focus there. But guess what keeps you alive? It is not Port Zante. It absolutely isn't. It is that place down at Bird Rock that keeps this entire country alive. Your cargo terminal is the most quintessential location in your entire country. That's what feeds you. If you don't believe me, when the cruise ships stop coming, you still survive and you were fed from that same port. If that port was shut down, I don't know. I remember Hurricane Lenny when the port was destroyed. I was right here, and no ships could come for about 2 weeks. And I remember Rams waiting for that container to come off, and it had to go straight to his place to serve him. We have to improve our ports. We have too many ports have been maintained in a break bulk status. What do I mean? Ports that were built in the 60s and early 70s were not built for containerization. Containerization showed up, and we've been struggling pushing containers through these ports, but they're not built for it. You see the warehouse right there on the dock? That was built because the break bulk cargo couldn't go too far because they would disappear. So the warehouse is there. It comes from the ship straight to the warehouse. And we need to remove the warehouses from our ports and actually start making space for containers. One of the challenges we have in the region is that there are many, many ports who don't have cranes. Fatima spoke of that. And shipping lines are becoming wary of ports that don't have cranes. It's challenging. That challenge is true in Grenada and Dominica. As a matter of fact, Minister, in Dominica, the wave action sometimes creates challenges for berthing. When there's a cruise ship that is served at the container terminal, Tropical and the other lines wait, and when they can't wait any longer, they leave with your cargo. So there is an issue as it relates to our cargo terminals that we have to address. And I would say, first of all, our challenge is not digitalization, it is not decarbonization, it's nothing else except changing and fixing our key port infrastructure. If we were to do what I suggested earlier, what that infrastructure becomes will be tailor-made to fit the market. Instead of everyone trying to build something extravagant and large, it would be tailor-made to your country, and it would be managed and done more efficiently. So the infrastructure stands out to me as one of the main pillars that we need to upgrade in our port ecosystem in our region.
Thank you very much, Mr. Telemak. So, Lee Olivier, he talked about port modernization being first. You showed us something that we haven't seen in the Caribbean. We haven't been able to historically see cargo or make it visible. Our cargo basically has been invisible. And every region that has built this has basically focused on compliance and markets, especially for buyers. So can you walk us through what becomes possible for a regional exporter? Think a farmer, think a manufacturer, maybe a distiller. Their day-to-day cargo becomes traceable. What does it unlock that they can't access?
Well, that's a brilliant question. Imagine each of you standing up, closing your eyes, trying to get around. Imagine that. Zero visibility. You have trillions of cargo floating today in containers with zero visibility. Less than 5% of containers on the dry side are tracked, about 30 to 40% on the reefer side are tracked. As I said before also, what we have done a lot here in the region and internationally is invested a lot in hardware infrastructure, but no software. And that's why I use the mobile phone example. 25 years ago, you had a Nokia, that was hardware. But that really didn't change the telecommunication world. That didn't change your lives. When it got smarter, that's what changed everything. So with platforms like ours, as we said, it filter into the single window. We're changing the way things are done. Instead of waiting until your container arrives, you can now do pre-arrival processing. I keep saying, we don't necessarily need bigger ports. We don't need bigger ships. We don't need bigger warehouses. We don't need larger supply chains. What we need are smart ports, smart ships, smart warehouses, smart supply chains. And with that, we'll come down to the customer on the ground and SMEs. So underlying the question should be, why are we focused on SMEs? SMEs make up 95% of your economies here in the Caribbean. That's the backbone. If you want to have a big push, you have to push those SMEs outside their comfort zone. But you can't have them trip over. You need to support them so they can not only walk, they can run very far, very fast. And if we don't do that, we're going to be locked out of this massive global expansion. The next 25 years is going to be the golden age of shipping, especially in the container space. And this is exactly why our exporters need us. We need to future-proof and make sure that we are not locking them out or pushing them to run when they're not ready. Technology is an enabling solution. It doesn't solve everything, but it solves a lot. So opening your eyes as a human, same thing we need to do for supply chains. Without visibility, we can't do anything else.
Thank you very much. And with regards to port efficiency, earlier Fatima from the World Bank showed us the layers of cost of trade from transshipment right out to port efficiency. Because there's so many costs that are being absorbed blindly today, how about tomorrow? You've talked a little bit about smart ports and everything being more efficient. And it's leveraging deep technologies like AI, digital twins, measurement results and verification, etc. It promises something different. Where do these technologies land in resolving some of the cost problems? And we know what becomes measurable that isn't today and what becomes preventable that isn't currently just absorbed. Why does this matter for future-proofing, as you mentioned, for regional resilience?
A brilliant question.
And it's for both of you, at the vessel level, at the port level.
So at the small SME level, this is, again, another brilliant question. Why? Costs. Does anyone in here want to pay more money for anything they have? Yes or no? If you do, raise your hand. Please raise your hand. Give that money to me. We don't want to. Why? It's a basic economic principle, supply and demand. So cost rises when you have delays. Cost rises when you have human interaction. But what was identified earlier within a region, similar to Europe, we are falling off a demographic cliff. What does that mean? That means you need to do more with the same people. And that's a big challenge. That's what technology enables. In other countries where you have a large labor market, fine. Then you have employability problems. And this is why some countries, some companies, you see have an issue. But for small countries and small economies like us, we are allowed to push what we call a production possibility frontward outwards. Increase our productivity. And I call it techonomics. Technology-driven economics. Technology is fundamentally shifting land, labor, capital, and enterprise in a way it has never done before. And that comes back to the simple thing. Anyone of you want to pay more, raise your hand. I will take that premium off of you and give you absolutely nothing back.
Are you, Darren?
Well, if you're in the tourism business and there are cruise ships coming into your country, we get a head tax. And that's a cost. That cost can invite more business, or it can, in some cases, if it's too expensive, some might leave. But there are some opportunities on the port side that we have not really ventured into. And I'd like to speak to on the opportunity side of those. I saw a cruise ship outside earlier today. And first of all, there are over 3,000 people on board and 2,000 crew members. 50% of the world cruising happens in the Caribbean. And I guarantee you there's not one Kititian on that ship employed. certainly they're not a captain or engineer or any officer on that ship. So we don't crew the ships. Second, that ship came here today and we didn't give it anything. So we don't provision the ship. Third, the ship has massive waste that it needs to get rid of, but we don't want it because our islands are too clean and too nice. So we don't do waste to energy with it. Fourth, the ship wants fuel. We don't have bunkering for it, so we don't do it. And five, that ship would be happy to get shore power. It can't get it. Getting our ports to understand that ports and shipping are not just about cargo is a critical piece that we need to understand. So chasing more passengers is the wrong matrix for us to actually build a tourism business. If we had, we've been doing cruising in the Caribbean, the whole Caribbean, for maybe the last 80 years or more. Where are the captains from the Caribbean if we have 50% of cruise shipping? None, we don't have them because we don't make that our business to make that something that we do or even crew it. So sometimes the opportunity at the ports actually evade us because we don't engage the way we should. And so I wanted to insert that there, Telly, to say that sometimes we miss the opportunities even within the port itself because the cruise ships only leave the Caribbean because of hurricanes. If there were no hurricanes, these monsters would never go anywhere. This is where they want to be. But they won't get insurance during June to a certain part of the year, so they leave. And so here is a business that we own. We don't use it. So I would say there's some challenges there that we need to address real quickly.
𝐶𝐬𝐴. And I want to open up questions to the audience. I want you to weigh in for those here in St. Kitts and Nevis and also online. Please send through your questions. Any questions? Okay, Mike, go ahead. Open your mic on the table. Or you could, okay. Can someone pass the mic, please? And let me see other hands for questions. Okay. Let's go with you first and then, okay, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon to the panel. Marlon Klein from Grenada Ports Authority. Picking up on Darwin's last point, and it's relevant to this morning's discussion as well. Ambassador Martin spoke of harnessing our culture, and when I look on the table, I see a text that speaks to culture, making profits out of using culture to harness profits. And the governor also spoke of it a couple of years ago. We are seeing students coming out of school with 20 O-levels. The shipping industry, like many other industries in the Caribbean, our education system, our secondary school education, we inherited it from the colonial masters. And we need to make fundamental changes to our education system so that students from a very early age understand the relationship between what they're doing in the classroom and the industries that we have available to us. If you go through the secondary school, a lot of the students, they don't know the pathways to become a captain. So I think, and as the governor said last year, turning out students in 2026 with 20 O-levels is not helping us. We need to relate the syllabus in the secondary school system with that of our industries and solving our problems. So the culture within the school system we need to change. A question for Mr. Oliver. Your technology, I'm very impressed, but to what extent our freight forwarders, for example, are aware or the cost of your technology? Because from a port point of view, we get claims all the time for damaged cargo, and everybody assumes it happened on the port. Thankfully, we've invested in cameras all over the port recently, and we could show to those people, look, the goods came out of the consolidated container damaged. So everything doesn't happen on the port. Yes, we have some stevedots who are pretty reckless and doesn't take the care that they should. But I think making your technology available to some of those freight forwarders especially would help solve a lot of problems and address where the actual damage is happening. So I don't know your cost. I don't know to what extent you market, because it's the first time I'm hearing of your product.
Sure.
It's a very good one, and I think more of us should have access to it.
Okay, so before Mr. Olivier asks, because of the timing, I'll take the other question. Go ahead, and please try and keep it very direct as a question.
Okay, I will.
No, he'll answer it after. Thank you, sir.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Very lively and very interactive conversation. I think it's very informative. My question really, to keep it very short and succinct, is there potential for there to be collaboration between both the single window clearance and this tracking system that you're putting in place in the containers? If we are saying that we're using the system to track where every ship is or where every container is, so whether it is on the ship or not, and we're also trying to do this single clearance throughout the OECS, is there a way maybe to have some sort of partnership where you have that clearance also reflected on the device, and so you can see which ship has already gotten clearance in a particular port before it goes into the next port?
Okay, great. And we have answered that, and I have a question from Zoom, and then we'll wrap up. So, Leaf, you can answer the first question.
Sure, quickly. So, cost-wise, come see me. It depends on the volumes. As I said, we're live from Panama all the way up to Mexico. So we're already huge in LATAM. It depends on the amount of volumes like everything else. Options are, and this is something myself and Darwin could have, if there's some type of cooperative for SMEs, freight forwarders, are you hitting me? Then this is the way forward, because this is creating a digital infrastructure that will now feed information in to the single window, so that you can of course, through the single window, pre-check the crew, pre-check the manifest. But what are you checking the manifest against? Tell me. It's the cargo. But the cargo is on the ship at the sea. So how are you going to see what's in the cargo? Our device gives that visibility. So the customs can see what's happening before it arrives. Around education, I'm an academic, of course, strange enough, crazy enough. Taught for about 12, 15 years, and a trade background. And I agree with you. And this is not a problem just in the UK. Sorry, in the Caribbean. It's a problem in the UK, where we need to change the focus on what is driving productivity. It's derived demand. What is the labor skills that are being demanding? And we're all small island nations, and we all need to be part of this journey. Because if shipping stops, as Darwin says, it is a catastrophe. And that is not resilience. Over to you.
I would say that on the question of seafarers, there is a dearth of seafarers in the world. 30% of the ships can't find seafarers, and that's captains, officers, mates. So there's a huge demand for that. I would suggest that in our small communities, we aim for the higher levels. The engineers, the captains, the officers. With smart people, we can get there. I don't think that every day a captain walks off with a hat on. It has to be a white Italian. This is our space. It should be one of us two. But that hasn't happened yet, and I'm hoping and praying that one day we could see a few people step up. Javi brought in the icon. Javi is the chief pilot from St. Kitts. There should be a young man from St. Kitts at the Caribbean Maritime University now, learning to be a captain, who is adopted on one of the cruise ships and stays there, and 20 years later, he brings the ship home. We need to start looking at that, to invest in there, and that's something I would hope we would do. To answer your question, I'm integrating what he's saying into what we're building. We're building it, so it's being built. So we'll discuss that with him. If it's proprietary, we will squeeze him as much as we can to get it to fit what we would like to see in our region. He's a regional guy. He'll be easy on us to some extent. And so I envision that would happen. What we would like real quick is for you to see it coming, see it arrive, see it cleared on the port, stay at your home, and receive it on your doorsteps, because another young person can create that secondary link so that we change the format that we have, which is the old system of having to come with your own paper to do the stuff itself. So we'd like to see that advance and create new industries as we build out this new space.
Great, and it's the whole discussion on interoperability. So we have a question from online, and this will be the last question. Minister has a question, please. Minister?
Great presentations. Just my curiosity, in terms of fighting crime, whether it's guns, drugs, any of the systems that you mentioned addresses this?
Great question.
That is I chair the Port Management Association of the Caribbean. That's 28 countries and over 200 ports in the region, cargo ports and other ports. Minister, that remains a challenge. The main reason, and I can say this because CBP, which is Customs and Border Patrol, has said it, the U.S. doesn't have the capacity to scan all the containers that leave the U.S. And that's true. So I have taken the bold step of going to the State Department to say, since you don't scan it, create the avenue for us to scan it. Because when it gets to St. Kitts, it's a smaller volume, so we can handle scanning. The whole issue of border security, managing the influx of guns is not obviously something that we import because we don't make them. And we find them at our ports. Today we have the port facility chief officers reporting back into a regional framework that tells us all of where we get these infractions, which container, which bill of lading. What we don't have, Minister, is the ability, and I'm working with the CARICOM Impacts to create that, which is to say you have 14 islands. And folks, listen to this, how simple this is. And I hope they're listening online too. Simple. One infraction in every island, or 2 or 3. You never see them because we don't speak. But now we're speaking. And what we find is that you may have one warehouse in Miami or Fort Lauderdale that did 4 or 5 of them. Or you may find 2 or 3 warehouses that you can track back. Why? Because every bill of lading you receive in our country has what is called a shipper's export declaration in the United States. That has an ID of the person that delivered the cargo, so we can know. Why we don't want to go back to figure it out, I've often been amazed as to why. It's not so complicated. So we can find who's sending these things in, and we can report it to the right people and take the necessary action. But once again, if we have one story, it's not the same as if we all bring the story in 1 month together and give it to someone who can go address it. So we're asking for port security control at the regional level to be something that we insert into the discussions to come up with a CARICOM Impacts led initiative that integrates at the port level for those reports and take it back up to the people that needs to get it.
Minister.
We have interject. Just
Very quick one.
very quick.
Yes, there is technology now that we can use. We can't detect 100%, but we can greatly reduce it. I worked on a UNDP project in East Africa where we're doing the opposite, trying to prevent smuggling of ivory and illicit contraband. I have some tech I can show you. You can have an offline conversation, which gives now 2-factor authentication, a digital fingerprint on each container.
Fantastic. And now, coming to the end of our panel, I think the last question pretty much sums it up. Given NACSR's technology focus for smart technology and Telemac and the Port Authority Antigua Port Authority as well as PMAC is focused on physical infrastructure, how do you strike a balance? And how do governments and policymakers make informed decisions? Let's do a rapid response and then we wrap.
Well, for me, I'm a port guy. He's a techie. So this is the balance. Get the port guy and the tech guy to work together and we have the solution solved. I will want infrastructure, good infrastructure that makes port operations efficient and low cost as possible. With the built-in safeguards that we can put in for visibility, security, and safety. And that would be how I would look at designing the port to arrive at what you're asking. I'm sure he has a few more creative ideas.
I think, exactly. So I think what is critical is policy must be driven by what's demanded. And remember, the useful economic life cycle of a ship is 25 years, ports are 50 and beyond. What we need to visualize, and this is why future-proofing is important. See what is demand, what are the challenges. But the beauty of here and now is leapfrog technology. Emerging countries like us can leapfrog. You can have technology as sophisticated as Europe here without the hardware. And that's why, Minister, we need to have a chat. I can show you some of the advances that we're developing. Because we do not need to have massive infrastructure. We can upgrade, but it's on the software side.
I want to thank both of you for sharing with our audience. We have heard physical infrastructure, we've heard real digital infrastructure, as well as connectivity. Thank you very much, and thank you all.
All right, that was a good discussion, informative. We're winding down, but we have one more session to go. Before we do that, let me just first say a big thank you to all of our online viewers and participants. This is now the time for us to close the online broadcast. But don't worry, we know that some of you were trying to get in with questions and perhaps some comments and some clarity that you were seeking. You will be given ample time for the rest of the 2 days to have those fielded. But for now, we're going to say thank you for those who join us online, whether it was YouTube or Facebook or other platforms. And we welcome you back tomorrow morning for the continuation of the GRD 2026 version at 8:30 tomorrow morning, Thursday. So we thank our online viewers and participants. Thank you.